Oh, hello. What's up? What's up? Call and response. How you doing? Mike, you're muted. You're muted, Mike. You got to unmute yourself. Unmute. Also, one of my favorite podcasts, hosted by Maisha Cherry. Everybody check it out. What were you saying, Mike?
I said hello in 7 languages, but y'all couldn't hear it because he was muted. I really wish I could have that back, you know?
Yeah. Well, I would say repeat those, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
Thank you for that. I appreciate you for looking out for me like that.
I got to have your back, man. Somebody, you know, if I don't have your back, who's going to have your back? Your spine? So how you doing, Mike? What's going on with you?
Oh, man, you know, trying to keep up with the world as always, inundated with information and not having a chance to really sit and think about much of anything. So, you know, I'm sifting through the waters, trying to take in what I can. You know, I noticed this morning Beethoven's black, apparently.
Huh? What?
Beethoven is black.
Ludwig van?
The only Beethoven I ever heard of, apparently.
Oh, well, there's that dog.
Well, that's true. But I think the dog was named after him.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So the OG Beethoven apparently is now, I don't know how, confirmed black. At least that's what 400,000 people on Twitter are saying all at the same time.
Wow.
So
that's kind of crazy.
I don't know what the source of it is, but people are talking about it. People are excited about it. Beethoven is black.
Beethoven's black. That's why he makes the jams. That's why. Oh, that's hilarious.
But it brings,
know that.
And it brings up a bunch of little weird issues too. And not that I'm going to spend too much time on it, but I think it's interesting because, you know, I see this headline, Beethoven's black. And you get a bunch of people tweeting about it. And it kind of opens up this issue of if he was black, how come nobody knew it? Like there was some sort of erasure that he himself may have engaged in himself.
Of course.
And then historians did. And then I saw another line of people tweeting about, why are y'all even worried about if Beethoven was black? We have all these real black composers that y'all could be paying attention to. And it's like, it's how complicated of a conversation it all is just that quickly, because historically we find out, or maybe found out, because I don't know how you confirm this, but suddenly Beethoven's black.
Well, I guess I don't care because he's dead.
That's a good reason not to care.
Yeah, but, you know, it does, the whole idea of erasure, you know, that makes sense because that's kind of how history goes. You know, history is, they say history is written by the winners, right? And it's always a group of people who are looking at what happened and going, all right, what we're going to put in there? What's going to serve us? What's going to keep us in power? Sort of a thing. So it makes sense that Beethoven would hide his blackness. You know, they didn't have like ancestry.com back then, you know, or africanancestry.com. So that makes sense. However, some great black composers off the top of my head, Quincy Jones, a lot of people don't know that. You know, people know Quincy Jones as a composer. They know him as the father of Rashida, but they don't know him as a, you know, like a composer. Did I say composer already? I meant producer. People know Quincy as a producer. Herbie Hancock, you know, I mean, there's a lot of jazz greats, you know, that are composers, you know, Dizzy Gillespie, et cetera, but we don't have to go into that right now. I do want to talk about something that happened that, you know, I guess brings me some happiness. You know, is weird because, you know, obviously somebody was killed and that does not bring me happiness.
See, and it's all complicated feelings. And I think, you know, we have to be able to say that too. Like, oh, this positive thing happened in the context of something that's really awful, you know? Absolutely.
And what we're talking about is the police in Atlanta who are being charged with the murder of Rayshard Brooks. So that's good news. I wish that Rayshard Brooks was alive, you know, but like, I'm happy that these cops are being held responsible. You know, it's funny, Mike, I'm starting to feel like I'm an abolitionist when it comes to prison. The irony is the only people I think that should be going to prison are police. That's I'm like, well, where are we going to put all these messed up police? That's what I think. You know, when people are like, we got to get rid of the prison, I'm like, but where are we going to put these horrible police though? So that's what I always think. But, you know, SpaceX had a really successful launch. So I say, shoot them into space. We already got a space force, you know one-way trip.
We talk about complicated feelings, right? I have complicated feelings about police.
What an understatement.
Well, I mean, Mike, you know, I think for a lot of people, it's more squarely negative, or if you're in some camps, it's more squarely positive, you know?
Okay.
But I think about police as like a social role. It's a very weird social role. because you are, in one sense, you are enforcing the status quo of the state, right? Especially the wealthy. Like, you are there to serve and protect the wealth that exists already, right? But typically, especially in America, if you're a policeman, you're enforcing that, but you don't live with the wealthy people. You live with us. After you take that uniform off, typically you come and live in a neighborhood with other working class people. So, I mean, it's one of the few social roles where there's this, I mean, it's got to be a cognitive dissonance, because when you put the uniform on, you disappear into the role that is an odd role, but then you take it off and you go home. That's why I think we're seeing a lot of police resigning and quitting right now. And a lot of people are saying that that's just due to how they are being treated or talked about. I think it's deeper than that. I think people are understanding how problematic of a social role that is, and how easy it is to just take it off and go do something else.
The police are a cult with guns. That's kind of how I look at them. And if I can disagree with you a little bit, because I think that's a big thing, because part of the problem is that these police do not live in those communities that they are policing. You know, they're watching Law and Order.
Let me make a distinction about
coming
that,
into our neighborhoods.
Let me make a distinction.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they live in the communities that they police. I'm saying they don't live with wealthy people.
Ah, yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? They don't live in wealthy neighborhoods. They live in working class neighborhoods. They live in neighborhoods with people who often agree with us about the police being, you know, about the police as an idea. You know, so in some way they might have a connection to people who feel like us, but then they have to serve the whims of people who live far away.
Well, I'd be curious to know what kind of neighborhood the majority of sheriffs and police commissioners across this country live in, because I wouldn't doubt if some of these police commissioners live in upper class neighborhoods.
Of course.
And they're like, I got to make sure that nobody comes near my friends.
Absolutely.
Complex stuff, but obviously we don't have enough time to unpack it right now because we have a full ass show.
It is.
It's going to be great. Today's topic, if you will, is Black does crack. Because obviously there's a lot of stuff that is not only being put on us, but is happening to us. You know, things that are out of control. And both of our guests today are going to talk a lot about that, I hope. And our first guest, I think we could just bring her right up if you want to, Mike.
I would love to.
Yes, indeed.
It's a dear friend of mine. I've known her for a very long time. Writer, producer, social commenter. We want to bring on Miss Jamilah Lemieux.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, Jamilah.
Hi. We have known each other a long time. Mike, you're one of the only people who pronounces my name correctly, because it's Jamilah and most people say Jamilah. And so it warms my heart to speak to someone who knows me in a situation like that.
Did I say it wrong?
I don't know if you said it. So you're good. So you didn't. So
okay.
So you're good.
How was it said again? Just want to hear.
It's just Jamilah.
Jamilah.
Okay. I know people with that name. That's why I can say it right. Well, thank you very much for being here with us. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about. Mike, you want to go on and start off? What do you think?
Well, Jamilah, I know that one thing you wanted to talk about was this J. Cole and No Name situation.
Queen Tone!
I know you went ahead and changed your Twitter name to Queen Tone.
Queen
and
Tone.
Everything. I just
gang.
I want to hear some of your thoughts about the situation.
First of all, thank you for setting me up by saying I wanted to talk about it, because I would, it'd have been so much easier if you were like, we wanted to talk to you about it. I'm like, well, I never would have brought this up, because who am I to attack our Black King Jermaine Cole? But since you asked, I have some feelings. But yes, I did want to talk about it because one, it just happened, and two, in this moment, I could not be more disappointed in an artist who has really, who I respect, whose music I've supported, and who has really, I think, benefited in so many ways from his adjacency to activism, right? It means a lot that he showed up in Ferguson with his head down, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't come taking selfies or looking for attention. He's participated in protests. I'm sure he does more than people are aware of. This is somebody who is, concerned about his community. And I think considering the amount of success he's had in the industry and what his fan base looks like, that's remarkable. You know, I don't want to disparage that at all or discount the value of who he is or what he's done. I think that the fact that him of all people would be the one to say, okay, I'm dropping this song in this moment, and would choose to include that approach to, if not specifically about No Name, then you're talking about a particular kind of woman, right? You're talking about activist sisters. You're talking about feminist women who are leading in this moment, who are demanding accountability, not just from the police, not just from the system, but from our men. Right. And saying that the expectation, if we're talking Black liberation, we're not just talking about for the brothers, we're talking about for the sisters, right? We're talking about for LGBTQ people. We're talking about expanding what it means when we talk about Black Lives Matter, right? Language that we got from a group of Black women. And for so long, our activism, our activist movements have prioritized the voices as well as the offenses that have been committed against Black men and boys.
True. To
the detriment of the collective, right? So you have Black women that have dutifully served our people in every capacity, who have served movements, who have led movements, right? And it's beyond just, you know, the women don't get enough credit or accolades or attention for the work that they do. It's talking about the issues and concern. Yeah, white, this is sweating.
Nobody sees it right now. Why you gotta call me out?
I was like,
oh, Jesus.
It's like we in church. That's how she knows she preaching, because you keep fanning yourself.
There you go. But you know, and so with that, I think there's so many, like, if he felt uncomfortable about her, you know, maybe sending a subtweet or if he felt in some way targeted by something that she said, I think that artist to artist, brother to sister, he should have, and an artist who is, you know, her peer in the loose sense of, like, they were all millennials, but he's 35, she's 28.
Right.
He should that you should think of her as little sister. You should think of her as somebody you want to affirm and support. And he did express his support and admiration of her in his response to everything that happened. But he said he, you know, also stood by the song. I think he should have picked up the phone and called her.
Right.
You know, and said, I'm feeling something and I want to, you know, talk to you about it. And I think that, you know, she's an incredible woman. I think she would have received that call, you know, in the best possible way, and they could have had a great conversation. And, you know, perhaps there's something he could do to support the work that she's doing, you know, because he's admitting he doesn't have the range. And that's what bothers me. Like, don't tell me you don't have the range, but then tell me what I need to do. At the point at which you say, I'm not that smart, my IQ is basic, I don't read, then you can go. You know what I mean? Like, your work here is, or go on and grab a seat.
Right.
Let me go on and grab a seat and listen. You know, don't tell me perhaps that Queen tone can be off-putting, right? I've never heard Queen, you know, I've certainly heard it as a pejorative. Somebody on Twitter said the other day, I wish I remember exactly who said it so I could credit her, but the Queen oftentimes feels like bitch in a head wrap.
Whoa.
You know?
Say that one more time, please.
That Queen ain't nothing but bitch in a head wrap.
Wow.
You know, and I have definitely been met with, listen here, Queen.
Right.
And I know the difference between Queen as in I'm celebrating you, I respect you, or I'm trying to, if nothing else, impress you or dazzle you, and bitch in a head wrap. And I'm not saying that that's what he was trying to get at with her, but that's how a lot of sisters felt about it.
True.
If I ever hear somebody in real life say that to you, I'm going to step up and just be like, here comes the hotep. Mike, I wanted you to run your cynical theory.
Okay. We'll see. Okay.
Yes.
Let me. Oh, Jamilah, I know we know each other real well. I don't know if you know this about me, though. I'm a very dark-hearted, cynical person. And this situation has taken my cynicism to the point of full-blown conspiracy. I have so many questions about why this happened that I am starting to make up reasons for myself why it happened. And I don't think, and it puts me in a space where some of the reasons I come up with are more about pushing a particular narrative or maybe orchestrating something than what was presented. So to say that plainer, I'm wondering if this isn't a little bit of theater. Because to me, the most mystifying thing about it is if there's one thing that's pricelessly valuable in our current economy, especially. There's so much noise. Everybody's competing for eyeballs and earballs and all the other ways that people get consumed. One thing you rarely see people do, especially if it's to something they don't agree with or they find issue with, they put a lot of attention on it. And to me, him feeling this way and choosing to make a song about it, and if any way somebody could have taken away that he was talking about a particular person, either him or the people around him, especially in this environment, especially in this moment in time, they had to know how much she would benefit from that level of attention. And I wonder, to me, just that fact alone, it just makes me question so much of how this is all unfolded. And, you know, and that takes the conversation away, I'll admit, away from the actual real issues that you bring up. But that is where my cynicism has brought me.
Mike thinks that he's being a purposeful troll, and that in post-pandemic America, they're going to go on tour together. the healing tour.
She's gonna add Rich Dad Poor Dad and the 48 Laws of Power to her book club. And it's gonna be like sponsored by Dreamville. I think, you know, I would love to believe that. That would be a great theory. I would love for this to have been an attempt at deliberately currying favor or attention for No Name in her work. But I just think that, you know, with the experience I have with benevolent sexism, it just sort of feels to me like
something. Yeah.
Just like the thing that should have been like, yeah, right now in this moment, this looks bad, you know, because this would have a lot of people would have been frustrated by that. You know, I'd have been mad under, you know, if there was no COVID and there was no uprising and we were just, you know, going about our normal Black tragic lives as opposed to like our hyper Black tragic, you know, our hyper tragic Black lives in this moment. But like, I don't know. I just really think that there's almost like a duty, a sense of duty and responsibility to correct and check women. That shows up from men at times.
You know, it's interesting to hear you say that too, because when you say it, and I feel you say that, it sounds like for you it's way easier to believe that it happened because it sounds like something you've experienced.
Absolutely. I mean, just a number of times. I mean, just even randomly, like being in a house party chat with a couple, you know, a guy I know, and then another guy joins, and then a few guys peep who they're talking to, and it becomes like I look up and I'm being kind of quizzed about feminism or just kind of like, you know, ask these questions. And I've had that situation happen. I mean, House Party, the app, because we don't have real life house parties there. I don't, you know, the rest of the world is not on quarantine, but I still am. But like, even, you know, like being at bars, being on dates, you know, being in professional situations, a number of times the men who like had not done any of the homework, you know, like I've never read a single thing, but I'm going to tell you why Bill Cosby didn't do it. And, you know, and I'm going to demand that you educate me about this if you want me to respect you, or if you want me to respect this whole feminist woman thing. And not only do I want you to educate me, but I want you to do it in a certain kind of tone. Right. And so on some level, I do have the proper tone for those conversations, but it's not necessarily it is the tone of my voice. It's also my complexion. Right. It's the way I look. It's the fact that I'm hyper femme. I'm light skinned. You know what I mean? I'm traditionally what's considered attractive in certain ways. And I am, you know, I don't, my personality, I should have got like MC Lyte or Rod Digger's voice, but I ended up kind of sounding like a Black Fran Drescher from the South Side of Chicago. So it is not as intimidating coming out of my mouth as it is like, say, via social media, when people are like looking at a follower count and just looking at a face and, you know, or not looking at a face, just looking at the words. So yeah, well, that tone police thing is
big.
I
just want to tell all of our viewers that if you see an album drop from someone called Black Fran, you now know who that is. This kind of transitions a little bit into another question I wanted to ask. First of all, you said you are a writer, you know, obviously, and just, you know, you said two words that you just kind of dropped out there. It was something I'd never heard that I would love to hear you expand on, which was the phrase benevolent sexism. And then from that, my follow-up question is, what do you think a writer's role is in this current climate? I mean, I'm thinking about like Baldwin. You know, Baldwin was, some people criticized him and because they were like, oh, he's not out there enough or whatever. And, I feel like his defense was always like, I'm a witness, I'm an observer, sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted to get your take on that. Please.
Yes. Benevolent sexism. So there's somebody straight up calling you or, a group of women or a particular woman out of her name and being very disparaging and in a way that's obviously colored by misogyny, right? Because you don't have to, not every woman's a nice person. Like a lot of us are assholes. I'm not saying that, calling a woman an asshole means, and you're a guy, means that you're a sexist, but there's blatantly sexist language and behavior. And then there's that polite, much like, some of our white allies who totally understand, and it's so rough. And it's just, but, all lives really do matter, and when you say Black Lives Matter, it's like you're saying my life doesn't matter. And I think that they all matter, right? And so they can make you feel as though like, hey, I'm not racist. I'm not trying to shut down your very legitimate complaints about racism. I would just like it if you perhaps delivered it to me in a nice package with a bow and perhaps a cute little card or something to make me feel better about it. And benevolent sexism functions in that same way. It's somebody telling you, queen, hey man, I really respect you, I understand you, and then attempting to invalidate or challenge everything that you have presented to them. It's presenting opportunities to women, but not giving them opportunities to really grow and flourish and lead, right? It's giving a woman a leadership position that has, or a leadership title with no leadership power, right? It's polite. It's friendly. It's mannerable. I think of the Dr. King talking about the white moderate, right, being more dangerous than the white radical racist who's going to straight up tell you that he doesn't believe in your humanity and he wants to see the worst for you. It's the one who's going to pretend as if they're aligned with what you have to say, but they're going to operate otherwise. And as far as the job of the writer in this moment, I believe it was Pearl Cleage who says the responsibility of the writer to make revolution irresistible. And I think that that's what we are, I think writers and artists are tasked with doing right now. So we don't necessarily have to cast ourselves as movement leaders or say, I'm an activist, excuse me, but contributing to the movement in the way that you best can. And for me, that's drawing an arrow towards certain things and hopefully using language that people can digest and understand. I'm not a scholar, I'm not an academic, so I don't write in academic jargon. I write in ways that, lay people can understand because I'm one of them. And I think I have a above average capacity for taking complicated concepts and synthesizing them in ways that, folks who don't typically think about or talk about feminism or don't typically talk about white supremacy can wrap their brains around and understand.
You said earlier that even if we weren't in the moment that we're in, if J. Cole drops that song, you still would have a lot to say about it. And what that reminds me of is you've been at this for a real long time. And when I think about you, I think about the fact that we're in a moment where a lot of people seem to be waking up to stuff that a lot of us have been hollering for a long time.
Don't say woke.
And that makes me think about, the R. Kelly documentary that you were instrumental in putting together and how like that was something, especially from people in Chicago, they had been screaming and hollering about for years and years and years. And it took that, that wonderful thing that you all made to make people really listen. And I wondered, what is that experience like to finally see people listen to something that's been very important for you for a long time?
There's been a very public, or I should say a very widespread tonal shift around feminism in general, and issues related to gender and sexuality. And so having had essentially the same politics most of my life, just the last few years have been really interesting, right? It's weird. And I'm sure you all can relate to this on some level that, you've been saying these things forever and been met with silence from people you love, people you respect and care about, not just the world outside, not just white folks, not just men, right? That there were people who I knew and loved who were still supporting R. Kelly specifically. Who have finally died, people from Chicago, people who grew up with the same information that we had available to us about who this man was. And to see them finally divest, it's bittersweet. It's frustrating because it shouldn't have taken this long. It shouldn't have taken, the first 6-hour miniseries to get to a point in which You have a state's attorney. Shout out to Kim Foxx. I truly do appreciate that and a number of the steps that she's taken since she's came into office in Chicago, or in Illinois. But this is somebody who took these allegations seriously and wanted to see accountability. And there were previous state's attorneys who chose not to do that. This was somebody who went on trial, who had police officers that were notifying him and his team when a girl's family had requested a wellness check. There was a system. That's why R. Kelly is facing RICO charges. Like, people don't necessarily realize that is a criminal enterprise, right? I do not believe that in the history of music, there's been an artist that has faced and been convicted of RICO charges, because that's not, a lot of these guys tell you that they're, criminal masterminds, and that's only in the studio. But R. Kelly was a criminal mastermind outside of the studio, right? And it wasn't drugs. It was having a endless supply of very young girls in his company.
It's trafficking.
Trafficking. It's certainly human trafficking, and there were a lot of people involved with it, and hopefully there'll be a lot of people held accountable for it. But I'm just glad it's happening.
Well, when you say people are waking up to lots of different issues, you say the conversation around feminism has shifted. There seems to be a conversation about race that we are witnessing happen in front of our eyes. And as somebody who's been really active for as long as you have, are you at all concerned about these movements kind of being co-opted by people who haven't been on the ground and might have their own agendas at play?
I think that's, that's a legitimate concern. I think, that's why I'm always careful not to identify myself as an activist or an organizer, so be clear. Like, if you're booking me to talk about something, I'm coming from the perspective of a cultural critic, of a writer, of a race woman, but not as somebody who is leading this charge, right? Not as somebody who's been on the ground, organizing rallies and marches and things like that. And those people, I think, deserve to be properly acknowledged as they wish to be, because there are a lot of people that want to be behind the scenes, and for good reason. But I think that, look at the Black Lives Matter Foundation situation, right? Like, you had an organization created called the Black Lives Matter Foundation that was not connected to the National Black Lives Matter organization, that was providing funding to police departments, or rather supporting the police and collecting donations, in the millions of dollars, because people were saying, okay, I'm making a donation to Black Lives Matter. And they either didn't do their due diligence, or that's exactly who they wanted to support. Wow. And they did so under the cover of this name. So I think that, on the other hand, while there will be people that are anointed leaders and voices that should not be, who haven't been doing that work, there's also so much power just in the paradigm shift, that, like, people say, well, all these brands are pandering to us because they want our money. Well, they've been getting our money all along, and they didn't even feel that they had to pander to us. So the fact that all of America has to see, a retail store or, a brand send out an email or put a sign up that says we stand with the Black community, like, that is powerful. That is. And regardless of what the actual intention behind that particular piece of language was, it means something. And I am very grateful for that. And we just have to continue to apply pressure and make sure that it doesn't just go down, that it results in more than just, financial gifts to specific organizations that are not doing the real work, or, blessing the endowments of HBCUs, which is certainly a great thing, but that there's policy changes that are being made, that our lives become safer, that we get greater access to food, clothes, shelter, and healthcare as a result of this moment.
We're going to have to wrap up in a little bit, but I wanted to just shift gears in a second. A lot of things that we've been talking about, I think, naturally lead me to this direction. Obviously, we know that the virus that's going around, I was going to say the country, but the planet, is very specifically affecting Black and brown communities in this country. So I'm curious as to your concerns about that, like what you're concerned about happening. And also, before this virus happened, there were a lot of things that were already in place in a lot of our communities to not help, I guess you could say. So I'm curious as to what some of the things you would like to pinpoint, are that fit that description.
Yeah, I think coronavirus is something that a lot of our people are not taking as seriously as we should. And I understand
I did have a fight
why.
with my sister. I did have a fight with my sister about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have had to, especially early on, you know, and now that things are reopening. And as much as we want to believe that, well, our people know that the president is a liar and he doesn't have our best interest in mind. And so if he's saying reopen the country, that we should know that that's definitely not the answer and that it's not time. But that there are people who take their cues from leadership, regardless of how valid that leadership is, because we are trained to respect the law. And so with that, it's important that we continue to remember that we are, even if you don't think of yourself as higher risk, one, there were so many people who heard, you know, young people aren't getting it. And they were like, okay, that means me. And it's like, no, when they say young, they weren't talking about 37-year-olds. You know what I mean? They were talking about 7-year-olds. Two, that even if you are not quote unquote high risk because you don't have, you know, any sort of respiratory condition, or, you know, you are thinking yourself as being in good health and you work out and go to the doctor and all that good stuff. One, the inadequacies in the healthcare that we get, even when we do get regular doctor checkups, even when we go to the hospital when something's wrong. You know, there were a number of people, and this was something that was reported on more early on, Black women in particular that I read about, and also some young Black men who went to the doctor with the symptoms, you know, when tests were in short supply, and said, I think I have this thing, and they were turned away only for them to pass away. You know, and so when they started talking about doctors are making pain, you know, doctors are having to make difficult decisions, you know, essentially about who lives and who dies because they're at capacity and they don't have enough, you know, at one point it wasn't enough respirators, they don't have enough PPE, they don't have, you know, all the things they need to treat everyone. So not everyone's going to get the treatment they deserve. If the studies show that under normal circumstances, Black folks go to the doctor and say, I don't feel well, and we're not believed. You know, we're told that we have, you know, we're having a panic attack, or that, you know, we're hypochondriacs, or, you know, that we're
especially a Black woman like yourself as well.
Especially a Black woman like myself. And I come to the hospital and I say that. And I say, you know, Black women die in ERs because blah, blah, blah. And they, you know, they love hearing that from me, of course. But at the very least, they may be thinking, okay, perhaps she's litigious. And, you know, I might want to treat her like something. But I think all Black people should think of themselves as extremely high risk between the pre-existing condition that you don't know you have, from the ways that we're treated when we have to engage with the healthcare system, to the condition of weathering, right? Which is something that there's not been enough study or investigation into this, but it's something that researchers are aware of. And hopefully there'll be a lot more exploration of what does centuries of generational trauma do to the body, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're in, and what is the sustained trauma in your own life, you know, due to racism? How does that manifest in you physically? So you could be an upper middle class, you know, high earning, college trained, you know, professional, and you still turn on the news and see people who look like you being hunted down by the police, right? That does something to you. And I didn't really know much about that phenomenon, about weathering, until I started reading more about the Black maternal health crisis.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Black women in this country who are high earning, college trained, have prenatal care, are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during pregnancy or up to 12 months afterwards than a white, poor woman with a high school diploma who's had no prenatal care. And that's not just about, you know, our weight. That's not just about, you know, where we live. Beyonce and Serena Williams both had life-threatening conditions during their pregnancy. Serena had to diagnose hers herself. She had a blood clot and was not being heard. You know, it was not being heard. And had she not, you know, because she'd had issues with her body before, because she's so in tune to what's going on with her, had she not said, I think this is a blood clot, I think this is what's happening to me right now, she might not be here right now. And just imagine us losing Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes of all time, who has every possible resource available to her, who not only on her own, but she's married to like a billionaire. You know, there's no reason that this woman shouldn't have access to the best care, but it doesn't matter, because if the best care doesn't hear you or see you
or understand the legacy and lineage that you're a part of.
Yeah. Or even just you're a woman having a baby.
Yeah. You know? Well, I'm happy that Serena did not die. Although I think if she did, a lot of people will have been like, well, what was she doing?
Yeah.
Like blaming it on her somehow. Yeah, that brings up a lot of different things because, you're talking about intergenerational trauma. And I feel like the study of epigenetics is sort of starting to kind of make more sense to me and how it actually expresses itself in our genes. And then also you're talking about weathering, obviously. Now, I know that stress makes people sick, right? It compromises your autoimmune system. It's the chemical cortisol. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It might be stressful a little being Black. It might be stressful a little being a woman, and it might be stressful a little being a Black woman. Yeah. So it's like you have a lot of that going on. Maybe all of those things contribute. Well, my goodness, what a great talk, Jamilah. I'm so happy to have had you here. Mike, you want to say thank you? I don't know. I prompted him. Mike doesn't usually say thank you, so Mike, please.
But in this case,
this time, okay,
I must. But just to a near and dear friend, it's wonderful to have you on, and I just want to thank you for being so wise and so passionate for so long, and never giving up, and helping see all of us through and communicate with us to help us process these moments. We appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and congratulations on the show. This is really dope.
Oh, thank you very much. That's Jamilah Lemieux, everybody. She is a writer and a cultural critic. You've seen her work in Essence, Playboy, Wired, and The Nation. Please follow her on all the social places because she's got stuff to say. And, I have learned a lot from her. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Woof. Woof. I don't know why I would say woof. There it is.
Because we feel woof. When we see woof, we know what woof means. When
That's
we hear
true.
woof, we know what woof means. Your body needs that and our ears need it. You know what I mean?
Weren't there multiple versions of that song? I feel like...
Yeah, there's woof, woot, there it is, and woo. I think, was it woo?
Whoomp?
Whoomp. There you go. Whoomp and woot.
Yeah.
One was tag team, the other was 95 South.
Oh, my God, with the history.
Yeah,
I remember
man.
the tag team because I remember the first line, tag team, back again. Check it directed, let's begin. Yeah.
Legal going to be mad at us now.
Uh-oh, I am, fair use, everybody. Please, fair use. Okay. Hopefully we don't get tag teamed by tag team.
How about it?
How about that? All right, so we're going to take a little break, and coming right up, we're going to have our good friend Chris Redd to talk with us about some very important work that he's doing. Stay where you is. That's a little reference. It's
what was it a reference to?
It was a reference to something that a character Jimmy Fallon used to do on Saturday Night Live. It was like a radio host. Every single time he came back, that yell was louder and louder and louder. And the reason I wanted to make that reference is because of our next guest that's coming in.
You know, I just put that together in my mind as you were saying it. It took me a second, but I got it.
Good. The next person that is coming to our stage right now, you might know him from a little show called Saturday Night Live. We had the honor of meeting this dude back in Palm Springs, Jash Fest. Wow. I think he was just coming from Chicago to LA. He was just in a movie called Pop Star Never Stop Stopping, which, if you haven't seen, is dope, and he kills it in that movie. So please welcome to our show, Mr. Chris Redd.
Yo, what's going on, fellas?
Chris, what's cracking with you, man?
I'm in Mississippi, man. I had to escape out of New York. I stayed there for about 3.5 months. And, you know, that city's not made to sit in your life for that long.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That is very, very true. That's very, very true.
Little one bedroom got a little tight. A little tight. So I road trip down because I don't trust planes.
Yes, correct.
Did you not trust planes before this, or is this just a new thing?
I loved planes before this. Before this, I was like, wow, what technology this is. But then you had a virus on it. I just don't trust. I just don't trust nobody when it comes to that virus, man. I'm true. So we were road tripping, and like all the Floyd protests kicked off. The uprising began while we were mid-trip. So we had to reroute some places so we didn't have to drive through certain cities, you know, because it's the South.
Because it was getting crazy.
Yeah, you know how it is being black somewhere.
Yeah, Mississippi is a place with a interesting history of being black there.
Yeah, a lot of crooked letters ran that place.
crooked letters, eyes, and some crooked days, to be very real.
Although that does bring me to that question too, because we're just curious, you know, how you've been coping with all this stuff that's been going on. You know, the pandemic. You know, you called it the uprising, which I am now going to always use because I think that's a correct way of describing it. So, what's been going on for Chris Redd during this?
I mean, the pandemic was in quarantine. It's you know, scary. It's the first time I've been scared of something. Like the virus scares me. It's just because like I have a lot of family and a lot of high risk. You know, my pops is high risk, and then just losing a lot of people, and just being in New York and seeing that, and seeing people not take it serious was just real frustrating. And then and the lack of leadership that we have in our government, lack of information, and just being in a place where we could have prevented this and got ahead of it a little bit, but instead we have an idiot that's dismantling a bunch of resources we need. So now it's just all of us in a group project with scientists just looking over their shoulder. They're the smartest kid in the class, but they don't know what the hell they doing either. So they're like, maybe it's this answer. We're like, yeah. But then now so it gets so convoluted about what to do, and it's just that part of that just makes it kind of infuriating.
Yeah. What was it like sitting still for you? You know, for somebody who's been moving and grooving in the industry for that long, with the grind that SNL can be. What was it like sitting still for that long in New York?
It was beautiful at first, actually. It was sad that it was what it was in order for it to happen, but it was like a blessing though, because I hadn't slowed down in years. That apartment I hadn't even spent more than a weekend, and since I had been there, because I was touring when I wasn't in on the show. So sitting in my life and realizing like, oh, damn, okay, I haven't really been here. And it gave me a sense of clarity to understand like, oh, I bought this couch because of pain. I bought this. I have like a really nice ass couch because I was couch surfing for 10 years. You know?
Oh, wow.
I'm going to buy this couch to say, fuck you, all the couches I had to sleep on.
I've done the exact same shit. I didn't even think about that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, just like you have time to really sit and identify.
Can I give you a quick couch revelation that I had? I moved into an apartment in February and I bought a couch. I bought a couch on Wayfair because it looked nice.
Right.
But then lockdown started, and so then I had to sit on that couch every day for 3 months. And Wayfair couches, that's what I learned. They're not built for that. They're not built to hold your whole body every day for that long. They're not built for that.
No, they're not. It's like you sit on that couch, you realize, oh, you have to know how to buy a couch. You have to know how how to build a home. I didn't know how to build a home. I was a nigga with new money. I was
yes.
I'm gonna get fly shit. And like now I'm just sitting on a bunch of uncomfortable shit, bro. And that's that's super wild.
We all grew up with, I think, with uncomfortable couches. You know what I mean? So real. Like, and I've slept on floors, couches, all kinds of things that my back is now being like, don't. But like, that's hilarious. You have to know what a comfortable couch is to know what you want. And some of us have never known that. And I just want to say the opinions about Wayfair are specifically of all of us, not of Funny or Die or Blavity.
Hey, it's a great couch. It just ain't made for 3 months of sitting. That's all.
It's not. And, you know, a lot of things are made for 3 months. You know what I'm saying? Like most New York apartments.
And New York relationships.
New York relationship. I thought I had a 1-bedroom. It turns out I got a studio where they put a wall in it. That's just something I knew slowing down.
Now I want to combine. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no. I was like, I just had there's a time limit. And that's why I came down here in Mississippi. And they don't take it serious out here. But there's a lot of space. So I don't got to see a lot of motherfuckers. So that's
okay. Perfect. Well, I wanted to transition towards something that is, you are doing something that actually is very important, you know, that combines. It's sort of like, you know, you're thinking about the virus and you're thinking about the uprising, you know, because when people started going out there protesting, people are not only risking their lives to face down the police, you know, but they are risking their lives because they're risking themselves getting the virus, you know, and also not only the physical burden that's going to come, but the financial burden that's going to come. And can you tell us a little bit about how you reacted to that?
Well, I'm always thinking about ways to give back to our communities because just the systematic oppression and the waves of effect on that. But then it was like the pandemic was hitting us so goddamn hard. On top of that, and then when the uprising happened, it was like, okay, shit, now we got to be out here fighting 2 battles at the same time. It's like there has to be, we need some kind of relief because I know that we're already losing jobs and we can't for the family. Now you gotta go out there and it just overwhelmed me. And I was like, man, what can we do to fight on different levels? Because I was also coming to see my compromising mutant pops, so I couldn't go out in the streets and then bring that shit home. So I was like, well, what can I do? Because I felt useless, and then I was like, well, they're gonna need this relief. Maybe if I kick this off right here, then somebody else could like kick it off too, and then we can have a bunch of people thinking about the next phase. Because the fight is gonna be different phases, and everybody's gonna have a different position. If they can't fight on the front lines, we can fight in other ways. Because we all got to be alive to see the change that we're fighting for. You know?
Yes. Yes.
So I was like, all right, well, let me just put a fund up and see like if Michael Jordan or somebody just like takes it and goes elsewhere because they got more money, and the thing just blew up in a way. I was like, damn, all right, well, let me figure out how to get this money to the people as quick as possible. And I was like, dumping it on like a non-for-profit just felt like it's the same process, and you don't know how quickly people are going to get the money. So I was like, well, so I just did research, hit up organizers and activists who've been doing this, and a bunch of advisors. It was like a crash course on all of this, in a span of like 3 weeks. And I just created this mutual aid fund that I built a network with organizers and still building. So if you're an organizer, come hit the site and let's link up. And created a way so that people can get money quick, man. Like if you go and get a test and they turn you away because you're a protester, which has been happening for some insurance companies.
Really?
Yeah. I got a couple emails from people like, yeah, I went to get tested and they wouldn't take my insurance because I was protesting. I'm like, well, that's some bullshit. So, and you know, even if you got tested and you got it and you have to be out of work and it's like, and just injuries in itself from being beat up at these protests and bail relief. So I was like, all right, so I'm gonna have a percentage of money to be able to get all these things, just try to make as big an impact as I can, and hopefully just keep that shit going, man. Give people another avenue to help the fight. You know?
What has the response been since you put the fund up and people have been able to donate? What's the response from people been?
It's been crazy, bro. Like it's just humbling, man. To like, and beautiful to see that people want to help and want to find ways to really affect change. And we're just like set up this week. We'll be set up to start giving money out, and I cannot wait for that too. Just
nice.
That's amazing.
See it at work. I'm gonna tell you, I'm new to all this shit, so it was a lot of logistical things that I don't like to do.
That's why you get partners, man.
Yeah. So I had to build a team and everything, and we did that, and just do all the paperwork and all this shit that was just like, I was like, oh, this is overwhelming. But now that I'm through it, I'm glad I did it. And I would do it again, but now I know who to get to do the things and do it not in such a short amount of time. But it's exciting for me to build something that we can just do what I set out to, just get people the money, and I just can't wait to just give them the money. Period.
Oh, well, we appreciate what you have done. We appreciate that you put this together. Chris is talking about his COVID-19 protest relief fund. Yeah. We'll make sure to post up the site here and there, and so again, and you're right, you're an idea man, so it's like you got to get the team of people who know how to get shit done behind you, which prompts me to give a shout out to Funny or Die and Blavity for putting together a team that can help us do this.
Also, the whole goal of it too, please go to the site and look at the organizations that I'm partnering with, because it's really about uplifting them. They've been doing the work. They're out here. I hopefully will not be a middleman, and people will have way more awareness of the organizations in their communities. I just want to continue to bring people together and be a resource for them. So please go look at all those organizations. There's some beautiful ones on there. And if you are one out there, join us. I will use my platform to up y'all, so that I'm just here for them. So,
I mean, I just got to say, it's an amazing way to use your resources. A lot of people get resources and hoard them and don't really look out for other people and just make sure they themselves are good. So we just want to definitely praise and shout you out for using your resources, using your platform to do something so specifically helpful in this time where people need a lot of help, man. So we appreciate that.
Thank you, man. I'm just going to continue to do the work. And y'all too, man. Y'all always finding a way to build a platform that can touch us and uplift us. And I love that, man, for real. And keep us informed too.
Appreciate that, Chris.
Appreciate it for sure.
Chris Redd, everybody. You can see him on Social Distant Saturday Night Live. Social Distant Night Live.
Quarantine Night Live, yeah.
SDNL. And watch him out there. If you don't know who Chris Redd is, I kind of don't know what to say to you right now.
I'm out here. Just keep your distance, but I'm out here though.
Well, when the world goes back to, it's not going to go back. It's just going to go forward. Let us say that. I don't want to go back to anything. I want to go forward to something brand new. But in that world, there will be live stand-up. So, hopefully we get to do that again. Chris Redd, everybody.
Appreciate you, bro.
Peace, y'all.
All right, going to take a little break. And when we come back, we are going to have best-selling author Ijeoma Oluo to talk to us about, all kinds of stuff. But, that's all I got to say.
That's enough.
This is why you need writers sometimes. Welcome back to Call and Response. I'm Baron Vaughn.
I'm Open Mike Eagle. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Good talk so far.
I'm riveted, man. My heart is. I think my temperature's at like 30% warm, man. I'm getting there.
Your heart temperature?
Yeah, it's like 30%, man.
Very nice. That's a bigger jump than I was expecting. Actually.
Me too. I don't know if I was ready for
it. Speaking of your heart, we'll go on. I just wanted to kind of, today's topic, if you're just joining us, is Black Does Crack. We're talking about all these different things that are weighing. I guess I kind of look at our communities as having to shoulder a lot of burdens that we did not ask for. And that causes all kinds of health problems, which, living in places where we have more pollution, where we have food deserts, where we don't have access to healthcare, as Jay-Z once said, every other corner there's a liquor store, fuck us up, so being able to kind of pinpoint a lot of these things, and I feel like that conversation is one of the things that the pandemic has, exaggerated, is the particular place and the particular treatment of Black people in this country, Black and brown people in this country for who knows how long, even before this country was a country. So we are trying to explore those things and how they today affect our health, especially in terms of what's going on with the virus. And right now we have another guest to bring up, but I wanted to let you speak on that a little bit, Mike, if you have anything to say.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to our next guest. She's somebody I've had the pleasure of being at a lot of events alongside, and I know her to be a brilliant communicator of difficult processes, difficult ideas, like very outsized concepts that we all interact with and have a sense of. But she's really incredible at communicating those things, both verbally and in her books. So we want to bring her on right now, the one and only, the brilliant Ijeoma Oluo. Welcome.
Hi.
Oh, look at you! Your earrings and your head wrap and your hairs. Those are awesome.
Thank you. When Jamilah said, that queen is a bitch in a head wrap, I had to fluff it up a little higher.
Flex on them a little bit.
Fantastic. Ijeoma, a long time ago, I don't know if I was in Seattle or if I was coming to Seattle. You had a little Twitter thread. We have a lot of mutual friends, and you had a little Twitter thread. First of all, you said you were a fan of mine, which I want to say thanks. The feeling is mutual. But you were going to come to a show of mine, but then something happened. Can you tell us about the complications that did ensue?
Yeah, I for a long time, I've always associated you, Baron, with my trip to the hospital. I was going on a date to see you, and I was very excited to have this date. And I started to have a stomach ache, right? And, I am in many ways that typical Black person. We don't go to the doctor unless it's an emergency. And I was like, this must be what your 30s feels like. Things just hurt randomly at times, right? And I kept thinking that. The day before, I start throwing up and I'm hurting. And I was like, man, I shouldn't have eaten that cake yesterday. I'll be fine, right?
I always think it's cake too.
Yeah. So I just keep getting sick. I get dressed up to the nines. I'm so excited. My brother was going to go too, because you've met my brother, Hum.
Yes.
And so I get there. I pull over on the 405 bridge, throw up into the water, get back in my car, keep going. I show up. I try to get out of my car, throw up on my shoes. Wow. I call my brother and I'm like, okay, my shoes are a mess. Can you help me out? He comes out and he was like, you need to go to the hospital. And I was like, yeah, can you take me? And he was like, well, I want to watch the show. Your date's in there. I'll go get him. He seems like a good guy and I'm sure he'll take you.
Wow, that's hilarious, I think.
Yeah. So anyways, I was like, man, I must just have food poisoning. Eventually go to the hospital. Turns out I had one of those epidermoid cysts that are like dark half tumors where your body tries to get all Swedish chef and make things all of a sudden. And sometimes, especially after childbirth, your body's like, look, we have all these extra cells from the last time we made a person. Let's see what we can do from it. Wow. And so I had a 13 centimeter tumor in my ovary, and it had teeth and hair.
Whoa!
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And it had killed my ovary. My ovary had died in my body. That's what I was feeling.
Oh my god!
Organ death.
And the doctor was like, "Have you ever had food poisoning? Because this is not like organ death doesn't feel like food poisoning." And I was like, "Look, I don't know. I don't go to the doctor unless it's urgent." And the doctor was like, "You need to come in when it's a little less urgent than this.
Wow.
Like you next time you could have died." So that was definitely, I would love to say I learned a lesson and go to the doctor sooner. I don't know. I still have one ovary, so we'll find out.
Well, that is an amazing story.
Yeah.
And it leads so perfectly into what we want to talk about. But a quick question. Did you keep the homunculus? The little
so mad they wouldn't let me. So that's when they decided to sedate me. I woke up from surgery and they said, "Did you keep the ovary?" They said no. I said, "Did you keep the tumor? Can I have it?" And they said no. And I started crying. And they were like, "We're going to put a little something in your IV so you can go back to sleep."
Wow. Well, that idea, by the way, of Black people don't go to the doctor, which, of course, I was raised with that idea. Mike, I don't know about you.
Same, yeah.
But it's because, because our healthcare system is very expensive. I mean, it's got to be very expensive to be the best one in the world, right? And so, I believe we are also the only quote unquote developed first world country. Words I hate. I'm just going to say I hate those words when talking about America. But we are the only country that has healthcare tied to employment, I believe. So in the Black community, there's a suspicion about doctors because not only are they expensive, but they don't listen to us, in general. So can you speak on that a little bit?
Absolutely. As a Black woman, and I think that Black people in general, Black women and femmes are never listened to. And I've dealt with issues over the years when it comes to my birth control. I've been hospitalized because I've called doctors saying something's wrong, not believed. I and many other Black people have shown up at hospitals in need of care and have been treated like pill seekers, and oftentimes written off. So I will go, I'm also a fat Black woman. So if I go to the doctor and it's not my regular doctor that I trust, if she's on vacation or if I'm in an emergency, they'll say, "Yeah, that pain you're experiencing, maybe go on a diet. Maybe eat a little less chicken, maybe, try a salad,
I'm sorry. Do they actually say eat a little less chicken without
no, they'll say
chicken having
things like,
come up?
Yeah, no, they'll say things like eat more salad, Even my brother was hospitalized with a life-threatening illness and lost 25 pounds in about a week. And I said, "I'm really concerned." And the doctor goes, "He could afford to lose a little weight."
Wow.
That was the response. Not, "Wow, no human being is supposed to lose that much weight in a week." So, it's something that when we talk to people about whether or not they're comfortable going into their doctors, Black people as a whole often are not. And for very good reason. They are not listened to. And that's of all ages. And oftentimes we are treated like criminals. We're treated like pill seekers. People think that we don't feel pain. They think that we're making it up when we say we're in pain. Doctors don't, studies have shown that many doctors don't think we feel pain like other people. And all of that means that, you're not going to go in. My partner is a Black man and has not been to the doctor in 20 years.
Wow.
Oof. And so when we talk about things like this outbreak and COVID, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't have any pre-existing conditions." I'm like, "Really? How do you know?"
20 years, a lot of things can start existing that didn't exist before.
Exactly. We are turning 40, a lot of things could have happened, could be happening, could be brewing, I mean, my body tried to build a whole nother thing over the years and I had no idea. And so, and I know we're not alone, and I've lost peers in this work to this virus. And the articles always go, they had no known pre-existing conditions, right? And I've noticed that verbiage is different between white people where they're like, they had no pre-existing conditions. And Black people, they're like, they had no known pre-existing conditions, right? Really like, "Oh, we know that you haven't been in a while. We know that you haven't gotten the treatment you need. Could you guess? Did you have anything? Do you think you have asthma?" And it's putting us at extreme risk all the time, not just right now.
One interesting thing that I've seen, we have so many reasons that it makes sense for Black people to have a distrust of the healthcare systems around us. And, what I've seen manifest is a distrust of, government as a whole, of information that comes from any sort of authority figure. I've seen a lot of that in my community and a lot of that in my family. It's a distrust that grows into full-blown conspiracy theory level thinking about the information that they receive, and a real hearty distrust of anything. So I'm seeing a lot of people, like if I go to the corner store in my neighborhood, they don't want to wear a mask because they don't even believe the virus exists. Like they don't, there's that much of a distrust. And I wonder, do you have any experience with people in your life who are that far into conspiracy theory that they can't really engage with the reality of information that comes about health and specifically about COVID?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's really rampant, and it makes sense, right? I don't look at Black people who believe these conspiracy theories and be like, whoa, you're so far gone, because it's based on shit that's happened, right? Like, oh, we've never been experimented on without our knowledge? No, we have been, oh, we haven't been systemically discriminated against. Oh, Trump isn't president. Like we live in a world that is out to get us. And so then, when you have this thing in these stories, and it's so hard because it upsets me, it hurts me, because at the same time I am losing peers, I am losing friends to this virus while people are saying it's not happening. And what I'm trying to get people to see, the conversations that we're having with people who don't believe this is just, if you're going to bet, please bet on Black safety. Please bet to protect your peers, right? The time for paranoia, if that paranoia can come back on the establishment, cool, but all it's going to come back on if you're wrong is us.
Wow.
So maybe be a little extra careful out of your love for Black people. And that's really all I can try to say right now.
And we put that on a t-shirt, please. Please bet on Black safety. Let's make that a t-shirt and figure out where we want to donate the proceeds to. So, Ijeoma, I wanted to transition a little bit into talking about your book. You have a book out called So You Want to Talk About Race, which is a bestseller on the New York Times bestseller list and the Wall Street Journal bestselling list. I can't even imagine what that feels like to have a bestseller. It probably feels like any other day. But you're talking about a lot of different things in the book. I haven't personally had a chance to read it yet, but obviously I'm very familiar with all the things that you've talked about, and I would assume I know some of the things that are in the book, even though I'm going to go read it. So I wanted you to just talk about some of the things that you explored in the book, or the questions that you had, or the questions you had been asked that inspired this.
Yeah, it's really strange. And I know that a lot of other Black writers are in the same space I am, to write a book that came out years ago. This book came out over, 2 years ago. That's like the beginning stages of like, hey, you want to start talking about these problems, and have that be what comes back to the forefront after brutal murder, that's broadcast to the world. But, what it is for me as a writer and a speaker, and I'm sure that any Black person in America understands this sentiment, where you want to stop having the same conversation over and over again. You want to have the conversations go somewhere, or you want it to stop because you've figured out a solution. And so the book is a collection of questions that people get asked over and over again, like, can I touch your hair? I don't like Al Sharpton. What do I do now? Like all these sorts of things that you wish you could move past. and each chapter kind of deconstructs and shows you, because these questions actually come up, like you get asked in the office, like that white guy will be like, I have a question. I care about Black lives, but that, that guy I heard on TV, he was just so angry, I don't know what to do. And how do you move past that? And so for me, when I wrote the book, I couldn't find a source at the time that took racial theory out of theory and into everyday practice. So how do you move forward with your family? How do you move forward with your organizations, with your cities, with your towns? And I wrote it really only after talking with a lot of people of color and finding out that they were having trouble in these conversations too. It was, they knew better than anyone that something was wrong, but they would try to talk to their boss or their coworkers or their friends and be met with, prove it, and not able to get anywhere. And so I really wanted to move past that. I was tired myself of having to write these beginning essays over and over again, and I want people to move forward.
What do you think would have to happen in our nation for allow us to be able to move forward from even having to have these conversations all the time?
I think we have to learn to do two things at once, right? So I feel like right now, and this is the situation I think we're in right now, I try to tell people, imagine that you walk out and 4 of your neighbors' houses are on fire. And you sit there and you're like, why does this keep happening? And your response should not be, let me go back inside and study the nature of fire, right? It should be, let me go to the people who've been putting this fire out and say, what do you need, right? And what we're seeing right now often is people going, let me find out what's been happening this last 400 years and sit with it, figure out how I feel about it before I do something. And we have to do both, right? You have to figure out who's setting these fires so you can get them to stop setting fires, but you also have to be putting out the fire that's happening. And until people recognize they can do both, and they can, right? If we are all human beings, this is what Black people in this country have been doing for hundreds of years. You can do both and must. And so there has to be that commitment of not, I'm going to wait till I'm comfortable. I'm going to wait till I know everything. It has to be, I'm going to be studying this and I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to study and I'm going to ask the people who already know what I need to do at the same time. And it has to happen locally. We have to stop looking nationally. It has to happen locally. You have to say what's happening, who's been working in my town, in my neighborhood, in my schools, and what do they need from me? And then what do I need to know at the same time?
I think that the pandemic is actually, one of the things that it's haphazardly done. It's made all of us have to slow down. It's made all of us have to kind of look at what's happening, and then with this flurry of deaths, which are not new, obviously these things have been happening since any Black person was on this continent. But I feel like there's something unique about everybody's at home. Everybody is seeing what's happening. It almost reminds me of when in the 60s, when people saw what was happening in Selma on the TV. It was hearsay, or maybe they read it in the newspaper, but being able to see it, being able to see what's happening, which is part of, I guess, the use of some of these videos of these deaths, which I cannot watch, but I guess what I'm trying to aim at is that, these issues are not new. But there's something unique about this time, because I feel like people are getting to a place where they're done binging shit. And, that's probably one of the reasons that a book like yours or Ibram Kendi, all these books that are at the top of these lists right now, people are being like, all right, I'm ignorant. I need to actually find out some stuff. So I'm curious as to what some of the things are that you think are unique about this particular moment are than the last couple of years.
What I think is interesting is I think that for the first time, a lot of white America is experiencing the tiniest taste of what ongoing terror does to you, right? I think we've all been stretched very thin by this pandemic. Everyone has been afraid for a long time. Black people have been afraid for a very, 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 very long time. But for many people in white America, they're wanting to function with this low level of fear that we have always functioned with, that is deteriorating.
Live stream, y'all. Live stream. We apologize. We had a little technical difficulty. But we are back. We're back here with Open Mike Eagle and Ijeoma Oluo. So Ijeoma was in the middle of answering a question, which I can't even remember. Do you remember it, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, basically,
I was so lost in her answer that I was
we've all been having these conversations for a long time, and it was, what about this moment kind of feels new to you, is what you were getting at.
Oh yeah, people sitting inside and kind of taking in what's going on.
Yeah, as I was saying, I think it's really just for the first time, many people in white America are having the tiniest taste of what it means to be Black and to be continuously traumatized in this country. People are walking around with this low level of fear, sitting in their homes, kind of afraid for their health and their safety in a way in which Black people are all of the time. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, they're turning on their internet, turning on their news and realizing, wait a minute, murder still happens, brutal, horrible murder. It still happens. And when we're supposed to come together over over the pandemic, and then they're turning protests and seeing, wait, there's still going to be protesters, and they're shocked and they don't know why. There's no break from this. And it's making it untenable, right? It's making it unbearable in a way that I think for white America, it had always been bearable. There had always been something to distract you, something to take you away. You always had a sense of safety in your own home that you don't have now. And it's the smallest taste of what it means to be Black in America. But it's enough when you've never experienced it, I think, to be like, something must be done, and it's kind of insulting and sad, but it's better than it not happening at all.
And before this, I feel like what a lot of white people thought had to be done was the election of Donald Trump. Like, I feel like that's how white supremacy functions right now. Of course, people always want to throw this Black supremacy stuff back at people. And I guess in my head, the way that, Black supremacy functions is someone kicking your door down and shooting you while you're in your own bed, has happened to many people. And I guess Fred Hampton is in my head as well. Right. But white supremacy is like, we can get a president elected, who is on our agenda. And I feel like that's a function of white supremacy. And I guess I was curious to ask you about, your feelings about how white supremacy functions, and also some I guess anecdotal stories that show how it functions that have happened to you in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to recognize, because a lot of people are confused, right? Certain people in certain television shows are confused about how this works. White supremacy is not a feeling. It's not like you wake up and be like, oh, I love whiteness. It's the best. Yay, white. Whatever that is, that's not white supremacy. It's a political construct, right? It is a political construct that ensures a hierarchy of who gets and who is taken from in our society. And it does not mean, of course, that every white person won the lottery. It doesn't mean that every white person is successful. It means that every white person gets to go to bed, look in the mirror and be like, at least I'm not Black. And that ties them to an economic construct that continuously exploits them and Black people for the benefit of the very few, very rich white people. It is a pyramid scheme, right? It's a pyramid scheme that said, you sell out these people and you will get paid off eventually, but the people at the top have already cashed out. They cashed out 400 years ago. And so it is important to recognize it's not about who you love, it's not about who you hate. But because you've been sold this idea that if you hang in there, everything that you sold out, all the people you sold out, it will pay off eventually. Eventually, you will become a king in your own little kingdom. Eventually, you will have that middle-class life, that house, that beautiful wife. If you just, it's coming to you. You were born deserving of it, and don't question why. Then that means that anything that challenges that becomes a threat, becomes a political threat. And so even looking at, how Trump becomes elected, studies have shown, and White Identity Politics is a great book on this, by the way, have shown that white people don't think about whiteness unless suddenly they start hearing about Black people, right? So when you ask them, do you identify as white? Do you identify as American? They'll identify as American. American becomes a stand-in for white. But then when Obama gets elected, or when they start hearing Black Lives Matter, they say, do you identify as white or American? And suddenly they identify as white. White is a reactive political consciousness that has to exist in reflection of other races, right? It is only measured by how well it is doing in comparison to Black people, to brown people in this country. And there's an inherent problem with that, because that means it's purely reflective. It doesn't get to sit and decide in calm, peaceful times what it wants to be. When I ask white people, what do you want to be? They're like, what do you mean, American? They don't think, what do I want the whiteness I participate in to be? What do I want political whiteness to be? They can only think about it when it's under threat. And so when we talk about white supremacy, we're talking about a reactionary political construct that we have to take control of. That if you are a white person, you have to say, no more, not in my name. I'm going to say I want whiteness to be different. And I don't want to be defined by how I can stand on other people. I don't want that to be what whiteness is anymore. But that means you have to figure out how it works. You have to figure out where it's perpetrated. You have to figure out where you uphold it. You have to start challenging why everyone on your TV screens is white. You have to start challenging why all of the senior executives in your businesses are white. You have to start challenging why so much of this country is built on underpaid and unpaid Black and brown labor. And you have to start wondering where you profit, where you've upheld it, and start deconstructing that, because you want whiteness to be something else.
First time I ever felt white was when I went to South Africa. and I don't mean like I was like, I'm white. I meant that I was in a sea of people who looked like me. And I was seeing Black people everywhere. Every advertisement, every television had Black people on it. And I just thought of myself as a person. I didn't think of myself as a Black person. I just existed, and I felt like I did have that I'm where I belong kind of feeling sort of thing. Right. Sorry, Mike, you were going to say something.
Yeah, there's something I want to get your insight. I know we're wrapping up soon, but things are very, very real right now. One of the ways that I know things are very, very real right now is that a lot of people who I know that are white associates of mine are like randomly checking on me. They're like sending me text messages or sending me messages on other platforms like, just want to make sure you're okay. And I think that's like a very well-meaning thing, but I think it's an odd thing though, because it seems like it's happening in response to racism that everybody is becoming more aware of. But when I think about the most racist moments I've ever been involved in, they were very like private and people don't know about them, and nobody was checking on me that day. Do you know what I mean? So it's odd to feel like people are checking on me now. I'm wondering, actually, I'm sure if that's happening to me, it's probably happening to you tenfold. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and if you felt like sharing how you usually respond to people checking on you that way.
Look, I live in Seattle. Okay. I have two phones, and I have a phone that most of the white people have, and I have another phone that the people have.
You got a bat phone, but it's a black phone.
Black phone. Yeah,
exactly. I am not even checking the other phone anymore, because you're like, oh, you've known me for 20 years, and you just discovered that I'm Black, and that means something in this world, and you want to see how I'm holding up. Well, you know what? I'm holding up the same way I was holding up last month, and the month before, and the month before. It's because all it is absolving people of their guilt. If anything, pause and think to yourself, why didn't I know this? How did I know this person and not realize that they're living in trauma? Okay, what stopped me? And deconstruct that. Make it so that we get less calls because everyone's more aware and are doing something for change. So don't bother me, because then all the people are doing is asking you to hold their emotions. They're letting you know that it bothers them to know that you are being traumatized. And I don't have space for that in my life. Like, I get it. It's well-meaning, but you should have been checking up and asking what you can do for a long time. And now that you know, what you should be doing is finding out what you can do. And just do the math. Think, how many of Ijeoma, how many Mikes are there, and how many white people surround them? Do we all need to call them at once?
One quick follow-up, just a quick thing, because you mentioned you're in Seattle. I wanted to know if you had any thoughts about the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, CHAZ, as it's being referred to, the area that's been taken over, I guess, in the middle of Seattle.
Like an episode of iZombie.
Oh, man. One thing I will say, it's shown a couple of things, right? First of all, that white people love a party, right? And so, like, right now, I went there a couple days ago, thousands of people, mostly white. It is Seattle. And they're like, oh, is this bumper shoot or is this a protest, right? I'm grateful for anything that ruins cops' days. And cops have been kicked out of a precinct there, right? So, but the one thing it does show, that was the scene of some of the most violent protests in Seattle, where, where like one young girl went into heart failure 3 times after being deliberately shot in the chest with a projectile.
Wow.
We saw this time and time again, saw people targeted by cops. The most peaceful it's ever been has been since the cops were kicked out of that space, and it's been left open to the protesters, right? Right now, there's a lot of debate about, how do we keep this movement centered on Black lives? And that's happening there, and I'm fascinated to watch it. It's also really fascinating to watch the collective freakout. Fox News had a reporter from the US/Chaz border reporting if he landed in a foreign country and
That's
not
hilarious.
like what looks like a block party, but at the same time, I think it's great to watch us create spaces in question. And it's great to watch. If you want to see what it looks like, you're worried about violent protests, see what happens when the cops leave. It happens is that people solve problems themselves. They talk things through. They're constantly trying to work out new solutions. Even the residents who are in the quote unquote occupied territory are saying, hey, yeah, there's some issues, but we're so glad we're not being tear gassed, because that's a residential neighborhood that was being tear gassed every single night. We love not hearing screams of people being shot by rubber bullets all day long. This has been way better. And so all of the fear mongering, look at that and say, you know what? No, people aren't dying. It's not chaos. We can actually function. Chaos is not our default. That's the one thing I said when I walked through there the first time, was it is proof that chaos is not our default. When the authorities leave, we do not descend into Mad Max territory. We are collective human beings. Black people want to live peacefully. All people want to live peacefully. And this idea that we would fall apart if we didn't send people trained to kill into every single social interaction we have is false. We are not violent children. We don't need to send someone trained to kill when someone has a mental health emergency. We don't need to send someone trained to kill when someone runs a red light. We don't need to send someone trained to kill when you're having an argument with your neighbor. We do not need that, and we do not fall into chaos when they're not there.
Oof.
Thank you so much for that.
Oluo, everybody. If you haven't picked up her book, so you want to talk about race, it is available in all the places where books are sold. Thank you very much, Ijeoma. Fantastic.
Thank you so much
to have you. That is our episode for today, right, Mike?
That's it.
That is it. We'll be back here again tomorrow at noon on Funny or Die and Blavity's many platforms on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. And tomorrow is a celebration, Mike. Tomorrow is Juneteenth, and we have 2 fantastic guests to join us on that party, Roxanne Gay and Roy Wood Jr. That is tomorrow at noon. For Baron Vaughn and Open Mike Eagle, I'm going to let Mike sign us off.
Well, it's a wonderful series of conversations we had today. My heart is at 40% warm. This is an all-time high for me. So we appreciate everybody that we've had on and everybody who was able to participate and view. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Fucking A. All right. All right.